probably too sexual.
We're back. I'm Dave Donaldson. Welcome back to Grip Tips. Today we're talking with my buddy Adam Richlin over at Lightbulb Grip. Yes, we're wearing each other's shirts. And I came to Brooklyn to not only check out Lightbulb Grip's facility. As many of you guys know, Adam actually was sponsoring me for a really long time. And so when we were starting to think about doing the Volt Stack video, I thought it would be really cool to actually show you guys inside of Lightbulb Grip, along with also getting to know Adam and how this company has kind of grown, and also just show you around. So Adam, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I'm always glad to be part of it, Dave.
So like how did Lightbulb Grip get started?
Yeah.
So we're a relatively young rental house in New York, and so we're only 4 years old. We've been moving a lot of gear, and we've been doing a lot of jobs, but we're still just getting going as well. So Finn is my partner, and so the two of us both got this started in about 2016, and so. We're live in Brooklyn.
Is that how? That's how Finn comes in, isn't it?
Yep. But, I can't tell if that's by police or by ambulance. So we started Lightbulb in 2016, and so it was a partnership between me and David Finn. And so I do a lot of the paperwork and customer service and for outward-facing stuff, and then he does a lot of the warehouse gear in and gear out. I started out owning owning some equipment of my own as a young DP because I just took the stuff out that I wanted to use on shoots.
Yeah, you had the dream.
Yeah, I never had enough money from productions for really renting equipment, and so I just used the stuff that I already had. I would just bring the things that I knew would get me a good look for a good demo reel, get me hired again. I was like, sooner or later they're gonna have enough money to actually pay for this stuff. But job by job, I bought a couple C-stands and a couple sandbags and one more light and then an accessory. And then
it became this.
We're getting there, yeah. And so, but it got to the point where I was renting out enough stuff that I was keeping the stuff in my apartment, but I could fill like a 14-foot truck with stuff. And my roommate hated it at the time. But hey, it contributed to rent. So I was working on a feature called Money the Film, LLC. And I laugh about it because the production company that they made to make the movie was Money the Film, LLC. But we were sitting on the back of the Grip truck, and I was sitting on the gate, and there was this young kid that was the best boy, and he was really happy about organizing the truck. Everything inside the truck was our gear, and so he was working on that, and I got a phone call from my accountant, and he was like, hey, you need to separate this gear rental thing off into its own business because it's about to like mess you up on taxes. Like, we got like a 5-digit problem.
Right.
And I was like, oh. So I hadn't really thought about that before. I just was lending stuff out to friends. They were paying me by like cash and stuff and check and stuff. And I was like, government notices these things. So I was sitting there thinking about it, and right at that moment, Finn comes over and he sits down next to me and he says, hey, I'd love to run a rental house one day. Like, this is a lot of fun. I much more like the organizing and gear in and gear out stuff than the making the movie part. And I was like, are you sure? Are you serious? Because I have an opportunity for you. And he completely wasn't expecting that conversation. And so we actually started out of a little mini storage facility together. We both pitched in on a little 10x10 unit, and then one 10x10 became two 10x10s, and the 2 became 3, and 3 became 4, and sooner or later we owned a whole hallway down a storage unit.
You're kind of like, wow, this is getting kind of big.
Yeah. I mean, mini storage was a great solution for us because they have a free loading dock, and productions didn't really care. They would send us a gear list. We'd email it back. They'd pay online. The producer's happy. They don't ever have to meet us. They send a PA to pick up in a van, and the PA has an easy loading dock experience, and we had all the gear prepped for him, and so it made for a starter facility for us before we could afford like getting our own real warehouse. It has its problems, but overall, like, that's what helped us get going. And then in 2017, another business owner friend of mine, Ruben, that used to run Below the Line Production Supply, came over and he was like, hey, I'm getting a warehouse and there's extra space on the back of it. You got to come see this place. It's got a loading dock. Like, you're going to love it. And the one problem that we really had with mini storage was that you can't leave stuff out overnight, and everything had to pack away in every unit. And so we had our units packed so puzzle carefully, like every single thing had a place. And so like we would get a return back at 11 o'clock at night, and suddenly Finn was there for another 3 hours. hours dealing with that. Or like we had gear checks out at 7 a.m., so he had to prep it starting at like 4 a.m. And so it was great that the facility that we're working with was very flexible and letting us come in 24 hours, but it's like, that's not sustainable. So we're doing enough work that we jumped into having our own warehouse, and that made a huge difference. And we had check-in and check-out space, and I had room for a desk and stuff, because I was just literally working out of my car and then sitting in front of the storage unit on an Apple box, and I just put up my computer and my laptop and work. So that's how we got going, and then now we're up to doing like 2,000 jobs a year. It's picked up a lot, and so we service a lot of small indie clients and music videos and short films and indie features over and over and over again. We have a lot of repeat commercial clients that come back and do new jobs every single week. And so it's been great watching our customers grow from some of them being students now to doing like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 budget projects weekly, and they still come back and use us. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and then so then what was it? I'm trying to remember our story of when you decided to start sponsoring me.
I saw the Grip Tip series online, and I was like, I need to advertise our company. Didn't really know how to advertise at that point. And so I saw the YouTube series, and I was like, he doesn't have any branding, he doesn't have like Dave didn't have any sponsors on his channel. It was just Dave making videos.
Yeah.
And so I figured I would just reach out and see if, hey, can I get our brand attached to this? Because for a long time, we've been a big proponent of education. We do free classes at Lightbulb.
Yeah, I see it on your guys' posts all the time. You always have like some sort of, a matter of fact, we're sitting in the spot where you teach it. Because I see the posts all the time, and I was like, it'd be really kind of cool to come and check one of those out. I know that you guys have had like a panel here of I think it was like DPs or something like that.
Yeah. We've done all sorts of things over the years. We've had discussions about diversity and inclusion for filmmakers. We've had discussions about leadership for and team building skills. We've had like all the way down to like introductions of new hardware, and here's how to use some of the software, and like straightforward rigging things. So like we've tried to embrace a much wider audience than just lights and grip, and say like, okay, filmmakers are people too, and we all do 5 or 6 jobs on set, and we all need to be prepared for a bunch of different kinds of problems. And so some of those problems are diplomatic and political on set, and as much as Grip Tips is a useful series, and that end of the world, nobody I feel like has really had great discussions about how to be good team leaders, how to be good managers, how to be like, so I've gone through a lot of leadership education and training going through college and stuff, and so I feel like we applied a lot of that to some of our classes.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I probably should take one of these days, because like
we gotta get to New York.
I always end up getting into a position or whatever where, like, because for me, I just kind of wanted to be, well, the grunt. I didn't want to delegate to anybody. I didn't want to do any. I wanted nothing to do with like leading anybody. But it seems like now, the more that my career is going, it seems like I'm being pushed into that position.
Yep.
So I'm gonna have to kind of follow on one of those leadership classes that you guys are giving one of these days, because that I know is something that I struggle with. And quite frankly, I think it's just because I come off as an ass when it's just like I want something specifically, but I'm like, I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
There's a great piece that we did in one of the leadership skills classes that we did, and it was called team building for department heads. And so the idea of the class was for young crew members that had excelled based on their artistic skills and were now put into leadership positions when they haven't necessarily had any experience leading people before. And so it was a bunch of basics of going through like how to organize the team beneath you and stuff. And one of the big ones was the idea of you're a waiter in a restaurant. And there are two groups of people. There's all of your staff that are beneath you in the kitchen, and then there's the crew that are above you, the director, the DP, up the food chain. Those are your guests in the dining room, and your job as the waiter is to never let either side know about the other side's problems.
Right.
Because if the customer is complaining and you go back to the kitchen and yell, okay, customer's complaining, everybody's immediately, well, I didn't do it, it's not my fault.
Is that why Gordon Ramsay has a show?
Yeah, but it makes for unrest that they can't fix in the back. And then if your guys in the back are having a screaming fight and throwing pans and knives at each other, you never want to let the customer know that you have a problem.
Right.
So from both sides' perspectives, everything is fine. And then there's a bunch more things about that on how you can work with one team while not letting, or work on fixing problems in one team without letting the other side down as well, and or feel like that you've forgotten about them. There's more layers to it, but just simply that idea of when you look at the people above the food chain on you and the people below, how do you communicating the problems that happen between them in a very careful and constructive manner, so that it's not just passing the fire through you and into the next guy's plate.
Right. Wow, that was
It's a little thing, but it makes a huge difference.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. There was a amazing Best Boy that I worked with on Luke Cage named Carl. I was on the electric team for a few days, and we had a whole bunch of things like melt down internally. And so it was one of those huge shoot days it was an overnight that was sprawling across 6 different blocks, and we had like 40 people on the electric crew. And so I caught him at one point, and I was like, hey, how's everything going? I was like, is there anything I can help with? And he goes, everything's going fine. And I was like, I know that's not true. I've been listening to the channel too. I know that's not true. And he goes, okay, I'm just telling you, everything's going fine. We got all the pieces sorted out. And so we then came back to at lunch and sitting down and having a conversation. And I had a rudimentary conversation before I figured out that restaurant model. But he basically was explaining that same idea to me of like, always tell the crew above and the crew below that everything's going fine, but then you're also managing those problems in separate ways, more than just saying, oh, everybody above us is having a screaming fight.
Right. Yeah, no, I actually do know a couple of situations that are like that too. I can't really explain them without mentioning names, so I'm obviously not going to. But
so you're not ignoring the problems that happen on set, but you are managing how people are given access to them emotionally, and that helps keep a forward-moving team of the people that you're responsible for, as best you can. Yeah. And sometimes you got to bang heads together in your own team, but that's another one.
Well, yeah. There was someone I was going to. So you guys. So you've been in this facility for
4 years now.
4 years.
Yeah.
And it's evolving every day. You've got this like scanning barcode thing or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's even worth mentioning and talking about, but I figured it's kind of a cool inventory system that like I feel like a lot of people could see just from like because in Detroit we have Detroit Power and Light, and I don't even think they have a cool barcode. Like, what is that exactly?
So we've barcoded all of our inventory, and so we work with a system called Current RMS that I love. It's an all-online system, and so every piece of hardware that passes through the warehouse gets scanned in and scanned out one by one. And so I don't know if you guys can see this stack of sandbags behind me, but every single sandbag has a hanging tag on it with a unique barcode for each one. And so all of our stingers, all of our apple boxes, all of our lamps, every piece is indexed, and that way we know exactly what we've sent out and when and who signed it out and how, and then when things come back, exactly when they came back, that they were checked in properly and they were put away properly. And so we put a lot of work into process control and management, and so just simply being able to track what has happened and who in our team is responsible for it has helped us a lot. And given us a good competitive advantage, because some of our competitors aren't as fastidious about their work, and so gear can go out with missing pieces and they don't really know, and so you end up fixing a lot more problems. But because we're able to track all of our jobs and we know exactly what's there and not there on an order before the customer ever even shows up, and so we can make sure that we're sending out perfect orders every time reliably. Right. Yeah. Our error percentage is much, much lower than any other rental house in New York because of this. And we do a lot of volume of small jobs constantly, but we're able to maintain that that level of quality because we're constantly keeping everything organized with a digital system. So we put a lot of work into automating the pieces as best we can so that we have more time for our humans to spend on the complicated tasks and the decision-making tasks that computers can't do as well.
Right.
So we scan everything out, and our warehouse sounds like it's booping and dinging all day, and I love it.
I noticed that earlier when I
yeah.
was shooting some other B-roll. It was just like, especially when we had the music going on.
boop, boop. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's just us over the course of the day, just slowly indexing through every single thing.
Yeah.
And our system lets us do a great thing called a global check-in that I love, where when we start stacking up jobs, and we'll have like a crazy Monday when 10, 15, 18 returns come back on the same morning, and they just stack up down our checkout floor, and we can just start at one end of the floor. We'll sign in a global check-in and just start scanning everything. It doesn't matter which job it is, and the system will put it back into the right job for us and mark it as, okay, it came back, it got checked in, this got checked in, this got checked in, this got checked in. And so but from our warehouse guy's perspective, he just starts on the far end of the floor and just keeps working until he gets back to the computer. And he just scans everything he can find, and then we do like one last pass through for the couple items that may have gotten missed, and then boop, everything just goes back out on the shelf, and we're good. Or we gotta check in. We gotta like test the lights and stuff. There's that part of it as well.
Well,
But
yeah,
in
you always
terms of
have to make
indexing,
sure that everything's good to go when you
Yep.
get it back. So you were saying before that like when you first started this, it was just like it was a couple of things that you could that you bought, or you were just trying to make do or whatever. If you could kind of redo that as far as what type of piece of gear, I mean, you've got a lot of it, so I know you got a lot of knowledge with a lot of this stuff. But what would you, if you were starting off again, what would you start with? And C-stand can't be one of them, because I feel like that's too easy.
Well, okay, so one thing. So I work with a lot of young filmmakers as they're getting their packages going, and so there's a number of young guys who have, or guys and girls who have like a sprinter's worth of hardware, and one of the most common things that we're helping support with them is depth of hardware, and so they'll have like one or two of each thing, but then when you get yourself into a big setup that you need suddenly 5 or 8 or 10 of something, it's hard to have that much on demand. So I think a very important thing is to make sure you have a wide range of basics for grip hardware. I know you said not stands, but stands and stingers are a big portion of that as well.
Not C-stands.
Not C-stands, yeah.
So I mean, I guess if you were going to pick a stand or something like that, if there's like that one piece of equipment that like you would have started with.
I think a very solid, or two very solid buys at the moment are a Joker 800 or a Sky Panel, and so they're both going to be between $5,000 and $7,000 to do, but it's one of those things that's worth saving up for, because that is a unit that will both rent a lot and will go out
for ROI.
Yes, it'll go out on a lot of different kinds of jobs and still be successful, and so you have more opportunities to make money on that piece, as well as having the reliable name brands that will retain value. So if you ever do, say, want to move up or sell those units, or like, I don't know, suddenly you have a medical bill or something, you need to sell them off and get some money back, they hold their value. So you buy a Sky Panel for like about $6,000 something at the moment, and you can wait 3 years and sell it for $6,000. You're not selling it for a quarter of the price or something.
Right.
Where other brands, things like Aperture and a number of the B&H and Adorama brands, the Chinese knockoff ones, they don't last. Their value doesn't last. You pay the most at the moment that you first buy them, and then immediately their value starts dropping.
Right.
So you're never going to get a good resale market on those, and so it's something to consider. They're less money to buy now, but
they'll get the job done, but at the same time, you might not get as much out of it.
Yeah.
So it's like a mileage thing.
Yeah. So a big thing I also encourage young filmmakers to take a look at is equipment financing. And so if you already have a credit card, or you already have some credit history, then usually you can be able to go to a equipment financing company and say, hey, I want to buy this piece of equipment, and I know that I can make more money per month than it would cost me to pay it off to you. So I feel like this is a good bet. It's an item that's going to be around for a while. You can make
most of my stuff was like that. I mean, it was all like a person. It wasn't even like a business credit card or anything. It was basically like was my personal credit card, and there was a show that I was working on, and I kind of just rolled the dice and I bought all the equipment. I could have bought a new camera. I could have bought lenses.
Yeah.
I know that that's constantly out there, and it's kind of why I do the show the way that I do it, because I like to try and because lighting is absolutely crucial, and the tools seriously just never. It's like they don't really age.
Yeah.
You know, until we figure out how to get a light on a drone and have that drone stand perfectly still and not make noise.
Yeah.
It's not going away. So
Yeah.
I've always, that's why I was like, yeah, and it was only, I think I paid I think my first big boy investment was like $3,200, but I got like all C stands, a couple families of Apple boxes, 10 sandbags, and et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And they've paid themselves off like 15 times now.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like the standard, if you look up a 1-ton package, is a great place to start for a young filmmaker. And just pulling, many rental houses have different versions of 1-ton packages, but pulling a simple version of that list and saying, okay, just start somewhere on the list and see how many pieces of it you can pick off, and then filling out that package is a great place to start. And then when you get yourself, if you land yourself a bigger job, you rent the pieces that you don't have until you're able to make enough, and hopefully you're making a little bit more than the rental, so you're keeping a piece of that too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of a balancing act, but I definitely think for young filmmakers, getting a copy of QuickBooks and getting all of their equipment in there with pricing, so that when a production wants to rent equipment from you, you're not just like spitballing a number.
Right.
You're saying like, okay, you want this many stands and this many sandbags and stuff for this many days, and here's the
like
math.
Good
and,
itemization.
Yeah. And figuring out that pricing sometimes, or like where the market is, you might want to talk to a local rental house and get a quote from them for the same equipment and say, hey, what would you guys be charging for this? So you get an idea of where you should be. And then, or if you're just have like a standard 1-ton package or something, you might be able to match package pricing relatively quickly with that. And then that'll give you a sense of where to be in the market, so that when you go to a producer, you have some confidence that it's, you're in the right place.
Well, Lightbulb Grip is a lighting rental house based out of Brooklyn, New York, and they're dedicated to the education and safety on all film sets. If you have any questions about what you see in today's episode, or maybe you're looking for a rental quote, you can feel free to reach out to them at www.lightbulbgrip.com. I did that without a script, nothing.
Wow. It's been a little while. I'm impressed you still had it.
I was sitting there thinking in my head,
So-
this is how I want to sign off with it. Well, Adam, thank you for joining me today, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's great to see you, dude.
Great to be here. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Wonderful.
I didn't think I was going to pull that off. I seriously thought I was going to choke on that.